You are.
I suppose. All right, I'd like to open the meeting for tonight at 4:30 as posted. And first line on the agenda that we'll address tonight is a meeting with DEP and the Superfund site up on Washington Street. Janet Waldron's with us tonight. So,
Hello, my name's Janet Waldron. I'm with the Mass DEP. I'm the project manager for the Groveland Wells Superfund site. We had been operating the treatment facility up on Washington Street to treat contaminated groundwater that was caused by most likely the Valley manufacturing plant, which was like right next door to where the facility is currently on Washington. I think it's 64 Washington. I guess don't necessarily need to go into the whole history. I don't know how familiar you are with that.
We're very familiar.
yeah, we're very,
Okay,
I'd
so-
say we're all very familiar.
So basically, I
Well,
just wanted to, Tom had asked me to come and speak with you folks, and also EPA, and fortunately, the EPA person couldn't make it this evening.
Yeah.
But he and I spoke, so some of the items I'd like to talk about is the process to permanently close the treatment facility. We have shut it down. We did shut it down in 2014, I believe, yeah, 2014. Basically, because we'd gotten to the point of sort of diminishing returns, we really couldn't treat it efficiently anymore to get to the final cleanup goals, which are the drinking water standards. And we had, EPA had done a study to show that whatever slight contamination there still was around the, aquifer, by the time it got to your well, it would not impact, it would not impact the drinking water well. And actually, there are a couple of what we call sentinel wells between the Valley property and your well, which we continue monitoring on a quarterly basis, and they've been non-detect for years and years and years, I think. Even when you folks were doing them, I believe you all, that had been non-detect as well.
So just for the people that are, I guess, potentially watching this, because we all know about it, and so how long was it actually in operation?
Okay. So the treatment facility was built in 1999, started operation in 2000. EPA operated it for 10 years until about 2011 they transferred the facility over to the DEP. And the Superfund requirements are that EPA operates groundwater treatment facilities for 10 years, and then the state takes over operation and maintenance of the facility. So we took it over 2011, and by 2014, as I said, we got to a point of really, it was costing more to operate than we were actually getting out of the aquifer there. And as I said, EPA did an evaluation and determined that even if we shut off the plant, stopped extracting contaminated water, it would not impact the municipal well. So we did shut it down, and we actually had performed monitoring on a monthly basis for the year prior to the shutdown to make sure that there wasn't gonna be any rebound after, sorry, this is a convoluted story, but in the meantime, EPA had done a thermal process where they basically extracted any vapors that they could get out of the ground. So we monitored for about a year on a monthly basis, then we shut the plant down, continued on a quarterly basis. Been doing that since since we shut down in 2014. So almost 4 years. And we've not seen any rebound of contamination in the area of where the contamination was located around the Valley building. So therefore, we have been in discussion with EPA to actually dismantle the building, take all the equipment out. As part of the process, the equipment will be either surplus through the state surplus property system, which that whole process is, first, anybody at DEP who might use any of the material can take it. Then other state agencies come and look at the equipment, and then finally municipalities such as yourselves could come and look in the building and see if there's anything that you could use. Anything that's large pieces of equipment, tanks, probably I think there's a compressor, big air compressor, that kind of material will be auctioned off through the state, would hold an auction and auction off those pieces of equipment. So once that's all done, the DEP would have our contractor go around and officially abandon the extraction wells that were part of that system, and any monitoring wells that we feel are not necessary for the future. Because even though we're shutting down and removing all the equipment, we still have to monitor the groundwater until the levels in the groundwater, either met the the drinking water standards, or two, we perform what's called a site-specific risk assessment. So any remaining contamination is not going to pose a risk to anyone who might be drinking that groundwater. So then after, while we're cleaning out that building, take all the equipment out, we have to plug up some of the pipes that are still there, clean the building itself, take everything out of it. Tom, you saw how much there is to be removed. We have to take out tanks, there's a scaffolding that goes around, we take that out of there, there's cement pads that all the equipment sits on, we have to take that out of there. Basically a completely empty building. Once that is done, an EPA will come in and judge, make sure it's clean. They will then transfer the building to the Archdiocese of Boston, who actually owns the property and the building on it. The Archdiocese can dispose of it or use it as they please. It's their building, it's their property. There are also what are called institutional controls on that property. There are actually 3 of them. There's one on the Valley Manufacturing property, there's one on the church property, and then there's one down in the, I believe it's, I think it's a DPW area near
Yep.
the dam area of Mill Pond.
Yep.
So primarily these are deed restrictions. So the one on the Valley Manufacturing property and the one on the church property, and actually the DPW as well, there is a restriction on groundwater use. We would not be able to extract groundwater for drinking water, for example, or even for agriculture, irrigation, or industrial purposes. That's just not allowed under this particular document. There are also on the Valley property and a portion of the church property, there's a restriction for excavation, digging into the soil, because there is some small remaining soil contamination at the site. So that's also not permitted. The DPW does not have that same restriction. The other reason for these restrictions is that so the wells that we still have on those properties are protected. You don't want someone to come and just rip out the well or knock it over, because we still need access to those wells to collect groundwater samples. So that's the reason for institutional controls.
Those wells are just inspectional wells?
Right, the extraction wells are still in place.
Yeah.
We've taken the pumps out,
Yeah.
we're not operating them. We most likely will abandon those as well. If we feel we don't need them for monitoring purposes, we would abandon those. There's a procedure that DEP has for abandoning monitoring wells. We basically grout it up, remove any appurtenances from the top. So
there's no future purpose of keeping the extraction wells so they could be used again, or?
Right. We don't feel at this point, we've done this 4 years of monitoring.
Yeah.
There hasn't been any rebound.
Yeah.
So therefore, any concentration what's still there would just continue to decline over time. It naturally attenuates as there's either through flushing or through microorganisms that can actually eat some of the contamination. So eventually it breaks down. So at this point, we determined we won't need to extract groundwater anymore. There are ways to amend the institutional controls. Right now, speaking of the church property, as I said, a portion of that is restricted. However, if the church decided they wanted to sell that property to someone, and that particular individual or company or town or whomever wanted to do some excavation there for whatever purpose, right now that's not allowed, not permitted. However, the institutional control can be amended so that that activity is allowed. So even though it's something that's called like a deed restriction, it can be amended, so.
You didn't amend that through DEP or through the state or?
The process would be that the church, which is the grantee, would discuss with the grantor, which at this point is actually the state, and we would negotiate a change to that document. I think if the church were to sell the property or a portion of that property, then that entity would then become, I believe, what's called the grantee. I may have this backwards, but the entity that would buy the property could then work with the state to have that amended, have that changed. One of the other things that EPA has, and I believe I had sent that link to Tom, was under their brownfields program, the EPA brownfields program for reusing of contaminated sites, has information about if the town were interested in the property. There's information in that guidance about how the town can file for or get approved through EPA for a brownfields use of the property. And there's certain releases for liability, things like that, because a lot of towns are concerned that if they buy property that's contaminated, they might then become responsible for any cleanup. There is relief for that in this brownfields program of EPA's. So once the DEP, as I said, cleans out the building, transfers it back to the Archdiocese, currently we still have to do groundwater monitoring to make sure that there really isn't any contamination that could be of concern. So right now, we've actually switched to annual groundwater monitoring. Just so once a year in the fall, we go out and about approximately 30 monitoring wells that we take samples from. And we have a contractor, it's called Novus Engineering currently, who does that monitoring for us, and they present us the information, the analytical results from that data. And there's still, as I said, there's still some remnants of contamination in the groundwater, but further down gradient, away from the valley property, it's under the drinking water standards. As I said, we do the sentinel wells on a quarterly basis that are directly between the facility and your drinking water wells. So those will be like early detection. In general, we don't feel that the groundwater's any longer heading towards municipal well number 1. It's more likely would go towards what used to be well number 2, so more following Johnson Creek.
Sure.
It goes in that
Yeah,
direction.
that makes sense.
So at some point, EPA does something called a 5-year review. So every 5 years, they need to look at sites where there still is contamination and perform an evaluation to make sure that the remedy, that what was done for the cleanup is still protective of either human health or the environment. So that's one thing that I think they're doing that. It might be either this year or next year. EPA will actually be performing one of those for the Groveland Wells site. So they'll be collecting data. That will be something that they can send out to the town once that's completed. It usually is available on EPA's website, but I think.
All the past reports are there
Always
too, I think, right?
Pardon?
All the past reports, I think, are already
Right,
up there.
right.
So if the public wanted to, they could,
Right.
I believe we have a link on our webpage to be able to get them right over to that, so they
Okay,
could kind of
good,
look at
good.
that.
Good. So that's pretty much what DEP is doing and is going to be doing, at least for the foreseeable future for the site. So I don't know if you folks have any questions or comments, concerns, or?
Well, I mean, you fielded a lot of the questions that I think we sent off just prior to the meeting to try to get a feel for really what was going on out there. I think you touched pretty much on all of them. For us, a couple of things. We really would like to try to get a handle on, if an additional well was to go on out there, if we're gonna, pursue putting another well out in that area, what kind of challenges we would have there. And And obviously, there's a major process to go through there.
Right.
As far as the building itself and whether or not we would have any use for it, we visited the site today with one of our consultants and took the plans, and we'll evaluate the building and see if it has any use. We need to do some improvements to well number one, its treatment facility there, and get some, what we consider bulk storage for chemical addition. So, I mean, the building is way oversized for what we need, but it's just something that I wanted to kind of check off the list and make sure it wasn't, if it's a viable option or not for us. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with that particular portion of the subject anyways. I don't know, you guys have any more
No,
questions?
because, I mean, certainly another well is certainly up for discussion in the future. So closer to the site, farther up from well one, and I know that's a loaded question,
Right.
but
You might wanna
at
consider-
Angelini's property,
Right.
somewhere in that vicinity is
Right.
where the other aquifer is, it's possible that we could tap.
I think any potential future use for a new water supply, I believe the DEP water supply program has a whole suite of activities and tests and whatnot that would need to be done before any new well could be installed. I don't know whether they would require, in this particular case, because the Superfund site is right there, whether they would require you folks to install, if you decided you did want to put in a supply well, if they would require or recommend putting in, again, sentinel wells between area contamination
Sure.
and your new well.
Mhm.
I don't know, I'm not familiar with all the process that they require for new supplies. But I'm sure there'd be some pump tests, you'd have to figure out
Sure.
Sure, yeah,
what your zone two or
yeah,
zone one even.
yeah.
would be.
So anything outside of the Valley Screw property is good? It meets the drinking,
Well, actually, I did bring, and I think I might have sent it, I'm not sure if I had sent this particular figure in the information that I sent.
Map?
Show you folks this, but this was from sampling that was conducted last fall that shows for the particular contaminant trichloroethylene, which has a drinking water standard of 5 micrograms per liter. This shows the current extent of 5 micrograms per liter or more, the yellow here. You can see like, this was before, I believe before they started the plant up. It was extending all the way down into this area, so you can see that it definitely has shrunk. Yeah, I
the
think.
blue area is what was
This-
existing?
Right, before they started up the plant. Actually, back in the late 80s, early 90s, it was much more extensive down, it was actually down in here, I think it's a lot of this area in here.
Mhm.
I think the area you're interested in the well, is that somewhere in here, perhaps? It's hard to tell, so here's the solar
Yeah.
array,
Yep.
Yeah,
maybe back in here, so, I mean, my only,
there's two locations, maybe one here, and then the other one would be,
Right.
oh,
Yeah,
on that
one was,
property
yeah,
line.
one was closer to here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And the other one out way further on.
The only thing I could think would be, that DEP might be concerned with, would be when you start pumping, if there is remnant of a plume here over the drinking water standard, would that pull it
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
towards your well?
Yeah,
Um,
certainly.
So that's something that,
There's no way to determine that unless, you
Right.
put the well in and put inspection wells in.
Right, and actually this, well, it does show a few, it doesn't, no, it's not really the best map that shows, I mean, there's some, these locations here are existing monitoring wells, these ones here, some down here. So certainly you could get information about what the levels of contamination were in here. And if any pump test needed to be done, if you wanted to use any of those wells as part of the pump test, I'm sure that could be arranged too.
Are those wells large enough, inspection wells large enough to do a pump test with?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're like 2.5 or something, 2 inch, something like that.
Yeah,
I think they're similar.
I
Okay,
Yeah,
would have to look up that information.
just thought that'd be larger.
Janet, is there anything the townspeople or the board here can do to help with your job at all, more than we're doing already?
I think it's fine. I really, it's eventually going to get towards the end of the Superfund cleanup process, and it's great. I mean, I don't know if you folks ever get citizens calling you, you can certainly direct them to me at DEP. If they ever have questions about what's going on at the.
You're right in Boston, right?
facility. I'm in Boston.
Winter Street?
Yes.
Right. DP, EPA's on Post Office Square?
Yes, that's correct.
All right.
Right, they could contact me, or they could
Yeah.
contact EPA.
Okay.
Right.
And periodically, we'll get some questions, and that's why we put the links up on the site and whatnot, but, I mean, it's good for the people to know that they can actually reach out to you directly if,
Right.
if they feel they need to.
Sure.
I mean, certainly all that information's out there, and,
So you certainly consider it to be a success.
Right, they actually, I would say that when EPA performed what's called the electrical resistive heating
Yeah.
for the soil, that really, I think, was the best thing for this particular site, that really knocked down the contamination, that removed a lot of basically what it does is it uses the electric current and it resistance, and it gets the contamination out of from where it's stuck into the soil, between the soil particles, and it can vaporize it, and you extract all the vapors, like the contaminant vapors. For some sites, it can really work really well, and I think it worked really well at this particular site. Because before we did it, there was still a lot of contamination remaining in the soil and groundwater, so it was very effective. I'm glad
So
they-
that was more effective than the extraction wells in that process itself, or?
Yes, I think in general it would. For example, if you had operated electrical resistive heating for the amount of time that the 10 years, now, you wouldn't operate it continuously, you'd probably kind of pulse it. You probably would have done that, probably more effectively. Unfortunately, it's a lot more costly
Yeah, I
because
was gonna
it's
say.
very electrically intense, so.
how old's the process? I mean, like, how long have they been doing that
How long
kind
have
of?
they been doing that?
Yeah.
I'd say probably 20 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
That long.
Hmm.
They did try it at another site that I have, and it just wasn't as effective as it was here.
Oh, really?
What does the state and federal government learn from your experience in Groveland, do you think, from your viewpoint?
Hard to say. I think, at least initially, I would say, I know EPA did quite frequently, they would send out fact sheets and whatnot to the town to let people know what's going on. Initially, you might have a lot of questions, and I think when people are aware that something is going on and the contamination is being dealt with, they are not as concerned, or they don't voice those concerns as frequently, because they understand that it is being addressed. I'd say, personally, again, the electrical resistive heating, if they had done that technology had been applied maybe 10 years before, I think we might not have had to operate the plant as long as we did.
Mm-hmm.
It was very effective in that case.
Very good.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yep, any other questions? Good, I'd like to thank you for coming in.
Absolutely, I really appreciate it.
And answering all those questions was a great help, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you for your expertise.
All right. Let's move into accepting a meeting, minutes of meeting of April 9th.
Do you need a motion to approve the minutes, Jim?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes of April 9th.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, sewer permits, increases for tying into the existing sewer system. I know we talked about this, but I don't think that we actually ever voted.
We didn't, and I guess I'd like to continue that to the next meeting.
Okay.
Only because I want to do a little bit further discussion with Ryan, who put together the sewer rate study.
Okay,
Just want to get some confirmation on some of the numbers.
yeah,
I looked at, he's recommending a sliding scale, so it would start at a regular residential connection fee.
Sure.
And then kind of go up from there. So I just want to make sure that we're all happy with that. So I'll bring that up, put that on the next meeting. We
Okay.
should be able to finalize it then.
all right, we'll put a hold on that for now.
Yeah.
Main Street sewer pump station?
This is the account that, we had the funds left over from the major project there. We were gonna try and work towards closing it out towards the end of this fiscal year project. We're gonna use some of these funds to, offset the II work. So we wanted
Okay.
to wait and hold until, so that, again, that'll go on next, carried over to the next meeting.
Okay. Haverhill, IMA for capital and treatment.
Yep. So I got an email from Bill Park today, and looking for an update.
Yep.
And as I reported to him, I'm gonna report to you. So Mr. Dineski from Copman and Page has been working on it, but he fell ill and was, I guess, out of commission for a bit. So he's a little backlogged at this point. So I just CC'd him on the communication between me and Haverhill so that he could understand that they're looking for an update also. So that's where it stands right now. As far as I know, he's working on it.
Okay. And Haverhill's still okay with it?
Yep.
Okay. Village property.
Bill's property, I talked to the owner, and I believe he's still dealing with planning on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think there's some issues that he's trying to work through there. Our particular plans and, you know, the infrastructure and that approval is done on our side, so he's all set with us. He's just waiting for something else.
Okay. SD Park.
So SD Park, the fire service has been installed. The pressure test and chlorination for the fire service is gonna be this week. So that'll be signed off on.
He brought an 8-inch fire service in?
He extended the existing 6-inch that was in there. It was per plan, so that was what was submitted. It went to 2 of the back buildings, per the request of the fire department. It was also, I mean, when he bought the property, there were a couple of small water services out there too that were off of the old service and kind of snaked around to different buildings. He decided to abandon the services that really ran out back, and he's got one building on the property that he wants to continue with the water service, which he's always had. We've always had 3 accounts out there.
Yep.
So I told him that he could do that as long as he put a new service into the building, which he agreed to today.
Excellent.
So he's moving forward with that. He is putting he's putting 3 new additional buildings. If you're looking at the property, it's to the right. So a building permit came in for a sign-off, and I wasn't aware that because he had talked about possibly developing in this very conceptual plan where it's gonna be mixed use with residential and whatnot, and I don't think it's going down that road now, so we decided to put up these 3 buildings, and one of the buildings that's closest to the road, he wants water and sewer. Unfortunately, he didn't design it with water and sewer, so he, I had him come in, we talked with his engineer. They're working towards a resolution to tie into the gravity sewer out front. Water isn't a problem, that's off the road, and he can extend the main that's there and service this one building for now, and, but he obviously has to put that all on a plan and submit it to us. Sewer, on the other hand, it's very deep out front if we were to do a gravity sewer, and it just didn't seem feasible for this one building in the time frame. So he's looking at other options, possibly gravity to wharf Lane, which is in the back, where his property abuts to that. So he's like 2 stories down to tie into the sewer that's on Main Street.
That's deeper.
It's very deep. And, or he does have a manhole on site where he's got gravity sewer. He's also looking at the possibility of a small pressure system, a pump system, to get him over just to that manhole. I told him that all plans would be reviewed, go through the review process, not only with us, but with our consultant.
Sure.
So that's where it is right now. I'm just waiting for more information to come back from his consultant, so we can pass it along to Ryan. So,
We have, he has options, so that's good.
yeah, he's got more than one.
Nelson Street Quarry,
I do not have an update on that. I'm not-
no update?
No.
Okay. Personal bylaw update?
I believe that's going through negotiations. We have an employee that's representing us, and they have a committee, and I haven't really heard too much on it, except that they are working on it.
Okay. Superintendent's report.
Just back to the personal bylaws, so the guy's
Okay.
union contract,
Good.
this is a little union update, that's just waiting for a sign off, everything's okay, it's just the business agent that needs to get with the town and an official sign off by the Board of Selectmen.
By the town, Tom, do you mean the Denise Dombrowski, the finance director, and she's
Yep.
also the personnel director? too,
Yep, so
right?
me and Denise worked on the contract and the final process, after we went back and forth, and it went really smooth, the Board of Selectmen, we're the head of personnel, they have to go ahead and
All right.
sign off on that contract, so,
Okay.
just like all the other union contracts.
All right.
Okay, superintendent's report.
It's not listed on here, but the sanitary survey, I did get that back last week, from DEP. That's the 3-year survey that's done on the whole water department. And we have no action items on that, so
Excellent.
we're in good shape. Recommendations, but no action items to speak of.
The action items aren't a big deal,
No, they're non-action, so sometimes what happens is when they do these inspections, they come back with a report and say, recommendations, and then they have actual action items, which you have to address in a certain amount of time frame. Violations,
Yeah.
if it will be, so we don't have any violations.
excellent.
So it's just really recommendations.
How often do they do the survey?
3 years for us.
Every 3 years?
Yeah, it depends on the facility or the department, but we're in a 3-year cycle.
Because of the size of the water system and
It's
the,
the size of the system, but other systems, depending on, maybe they have some problems, they may do it annually,
all right.
But that's just been the cycle since I've been
Alright.
here, so.
Wells 3 to 4, pump testing.
So the contractor, Mara came in, did the pump testing, we had our consultant on site. I spoke with him today, so we have all those reports back. He wants us to maximize some of the outputs on our main well pumps and get some additional data for him. So we're gonna do that tomorrow and move forward. He does think that there's a hydraulic blockage, maybe there's a 12-inch main out here, and then it jumps down to 8-inch and then 12 back to the tank. But I don't think the hydraulic model and the numbers that he had, he just wants some more data to confirm what he got on site. So he asked me to do that. 'Cause
Do we have
the pump's designed at 400 GPM.
both pumps?
No, that's well 3. Well 4 is 200 GPM.
Is that GPM, gallons per minute?
Yeah, and the pump 4 is falling off its curve, and pump 3, the problem is they fight each other, so it's a combined source, so we have, 2 separate sources that pump to one pipe, and I think that's one of the bigger conflicts, is trying to get pumps that will meet each other on the curve and get you the output that you need.
Yeah, that's true.
So he'll be looking at that and also looking at, getting the 500 GPM that's registered for well number 3. If in fact that is feasible, or should we be maybe talking about bringing some of that registration back on well number 1 where it originally came from and getting the 100 GPM out of there.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a with the manganese levels that are at number one and the iron levels, it's a bit of a trade-off on blending that source and, or those sources, I should say. So right now, with the way that 3 and 4 are running, we're meeting all state requirements as far as manganese is concerned, so.
What was the original design on pump 4?
The original design on pump 4 was 500 GPM.
It was.
That's what it was registered for.
Did it ever pump 500 gallons a minute?
You know, I believe it did back in '79.
Okay. So it's fallen way off.
It's falling off, but there was a pump change in there, and I think the pump change happened when they brought on 4. And I don't think it ever got back to that because they're fighting each other. I don't know that they could find a, you know, so it may be that it's, maybe we only get 4 out of 3 and the 200 out of 4, and now we have this other 100 of registration, and whether or not DEP will allow us to maybe ratchet up number 1, because number 1, there's plenty of water there.
Yeah.
And that pump historically pumped 600 GPM. You know, and with the contamination that we talked about tonight, everything got ratcheted back. But,
Yeah.
you know, with what we're hearing now, you know, maybe that's the route we should go. Maybe we should be looking at that. And,
Reception of the iron and manganese.
yeah, well, that's the characteristic of the groundwater, so,
Exactly. But at least it was good news.
yeah, absolutely.
Very good news. Ongoing projects, 23 School Street.
So I had got the construction plans today. Those are complete plan. I don't have them with us, but they're back in the office, so we can review those. I also have the RFPs written for the labor and stock. You know, now that we had the town meeting and the vote for the additional funding. I felt it would-
RFP, is that a request for proposal?
Correct.
Does that go out to state bid?
It will. Denise is gonna help put that bid package together. The town has some boilerplate language.
Oh.
She'll take the scopes that I've put together. I've asked Sam, the building inspector, to look at the plans.
Sam Joslin?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just make any comments. I mean, he's been really good about, we've been kind of going back and forth and tweaking things a little bit here and there. So I think we're there. Hopefully, we get in there by the fall, all of us. The guys have been bringing stuff down there. I'm still anticipating they'd be totally operating out of that facility by the end of the month.
Oh, good.
So they've made good headway, considering all the other stuff that they've had to put to, you know, deal with out there, so.
Sure. Regular duties and everything.
Yeah.
Rail trail easement, I saw a bunch of emails going back and forth about the easement. And
Sure. So, you know, essentially, with the rail trail, there may have been a little miscommunication here. I guess I wish there was a little more communication when this whole project was proposed. But the rail trail, the section that runs behind Whitestone Village happens to be the area that the sewer system ends, the main interceptor. So for the town to extend sewer out to Center Street to possibly service South Groveland, we would need to cross that trail. At some point, it's gonna have to happen. When that happens, I don't know.
the trail currently is gonna run on the,
It'll run on the
Abandoned.
railroad bed, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so, you know, I guess my voice was, well, if this does have to happen, why don't we deal with it now and not after the rail trail's been completed? And people are wondering why we're digging up a rail trail.
Is 75% complete, the design now? Yeah,
Correct.
75.
So, I mean, we still have time to do this. You know, we had a meeting, Denise put a meeting together last week, which was really good from an informational standpoint, and we had representatives from, the consultant that's hired, Stan Tech, was there. Also, Mass DEP had a representative there, and, Natural Heritage and whatnot. So they're dealing with a lot of environmental stuff and permitting. In talking with Mass DEP, they're not recommending that this actually be part of the project. They don't, a couple of things. One, if you include pipe in this project, first of all, this project is 100% funded by Mass DEP. So Mass DEP will not pay for any sewer pipe to get put in the ground. That's just gonna be a non-participating item. But, that being said, if you did include it in the bid package, there are other items on there, drainage items, clean drainage and piping that they would no longer pay for. The town would have to pay for those items. So there's a negative there. They also think that the majority of the people that would be, or contractors that would be bidding on this particular project really wouldn't be doing sewer that deep, because this is a deep sewer. Therefore, you may not really get a good competitive bid on it. So walking away from the meeting, we kind of concentrated on putting together, I've asked Stantec and I asked one of our other consultants to put together a cost proposal to do this work, the engineering,
Yeah.
just within the scope of the trail itself, to get out of both sides of it. And then I've asked the consultant, Stantec, who's working on the project, if they could do the permitting for us. They may be able to handle all the permitting because it falls within the same trail under this existing scope, which would save some money.
That would be a help.
Yeah, so
So
that's,
does the rail trail have to get permission from the railroad to make the trip?
I believe they have to secure a lot of easement. I'm not sure of the whole protocol,
It's just like a
but
99-year lease or something.
Is
it's
it?
actually National Grid now. It's not the
Yeah.
railroad.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. so
Yes,
it's-
that's right.
They'll Boston, Maine or something.
Yeah.
But at one point, we had permission to directional drill that
Okay.
from National Grid. Right, Pat?
Correct.
Yeah,
I mean, I know it crossed it once.
yeah.
It had to
exactly.
cross it to get over
Yeah,
there,
exactly.
originally.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm hoping that we can kind of fast track this, considering the circumstances. I think they got a expected bid date of February of 2019, so. You know, I'll just keep getting that information. You know, the one thing that we need to talk about cost, right? Or funding, I should say. So once we
Funding.
get those costs and how we're gonna fund the project. If it's a joint collaborative or it's all on the sewer budget. So that's something that I think we may wanna talk about.
That's a main part of the infrastructure that would need to be done to extend sewer anywhere beyond Center Street. And it's part of the master plan.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
That being said, what is the cost to get it done?
Well, once I get that, I'll
Yeah,
let you know, and then
exactly.
we are gonna have a fall town meeting,
We are,
yes.
yes.
So we could possibly deal with it then.
Not even at that meeting, if it's something that's gonna help, not just the sewer ratepayers, but the whole town
Yeah.
and the property the town now owns up there, maybe it's a joint venture, we could entertain that idea.
Yeah.
So that would be a great help as well. Anything else?
The only thing I had was me and Patty were going over the minutes, and there was a time frame. We talked about, because we had a leak on private property, and this happens once in a while. And, you know, really, we don't have anything in writing that addresses when they should be fixing the leak. If it's a major main break, then obviously we'd treat it just like any other major main
Sure.
break. So I guess I'm looking for, you know, maybe we should think about some language that, you know, obviously the nature of the leak has to be evaluated, dealt with at the discretion of the superintendent, but no more than 14 days or 7 days. I don't know what we want to put in there for a time frame to have, you know, people that need to take care of leaks that are on their portion of the water service or water main.
So it's a curb box to their house.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if it's a curb box to the home, the homeowner owns it. If there's a leak there, I mean, we can always shut the water off, but we always want to work with people and
Sure.
try to make that happen. It hasn't been a big problem, it really hasn't, but it's just something.
Couple of year kind of thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, the latest one at Chesterton was a larger leak that,
Yeah.
you know, and that's a big business, and we don't want to shut them down and put them out of business. So, and we worked together, we got through it. But,
Had it been leaking for a long time?
it's tough to say. It kind of surfaced in the winter. We didn't pick it up on our leak detection when we did it, and I think we did it late, sometime in November, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't.
Yeah.
It could have happened over the winter, and then it surfaced. They seemed to think it was like buried underneath a snow pile. It was close to a stream, so it was kind of going into there. We didn't pick it up on our pumpage.
But I thought
Anything
it's-
major,
I
but
thought they actually got it repaired fairly quickly, no?
they did, a couple
They did,
days.
Couple days.
Yeah. They're fixed in a couple days.
Yeah. Good. We can certainly address those policies. Anything else, Pat?
Nope, I have some liens that need to be signed.
Okay.
around the office, but I sent out delinquents, people are paying and setting up budgets.
Excellent. If nothing else, we can motion to adjourn.
When are we meeting again?
Oh, that's a good point. Oh, hang on. Hold on, Kellen. Does anybody have a calendar?
Sure, I got one.
Nice. I'm not gonna find mine in a timely fashion. Charlie will be working on
Today's the
overtime.
21st.
What's that? I,
2 to 4 weeks?
when would you like to meet in June? So we got the 4th, 11th, 18th, 25th.
What's good for you, Jake?
I'm open any of those days, so.
Yeah,
Pat?
to-
Bigger portion, I mean, the beginning portion of the month, we're gonna close out, talk about budget closeout and all that too, right?
July 1st fiscal year, right?
yeah. Oh, the 11th, does that work for everybody?
It's fine with me.
Sounds good.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay,
All right, 11th it is.
time is it?
It is 5:16.
Oh, yeah.
Motion to close the meeting?
Make a motion, we close. Adjourn the meeting?
Adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Charlie.
Jesus Christ, I think that's a record.
That's great, you're still.